Shalom, my friends, and welcome to this week's news. I have a lot to report on. We're going to start off with Iran. Brigadier General Farzad Esmaili, commander of Khatam al-Anbiya Air Defense Base, announced on Wednesday, August 6th, that Iran plans to unveil its latest achievements with missile technology on September 22nd this year, unveiling the latest mid- and long-range missile defense systems, including combined systems, artillery and radar systems, and other new systems. The annual September 22nd parades mark the start of the Week of Sacred Defense, which commemorates Iranian sacrifices during 8 years of the Iraqi-imposed war on Iran in the 1980s. During the parades last year, the Iranian armed forces displayed different weapons, military tools, and equipment, including different kinds of fighters, choppers, drones, ground-to-ground missiles, air-to-ground missiles, surface-to-surface missiles, tactical and armed vehicles, surface and underwater vessels, electronic and telecommunication equipment, light and mid-light weapons, different kinds of artillery and mortar launchers, air defense systems, and engineering and logistic equipment. The Iranian armed forces also displayed the tactical troposcatter system, which is an advanced homemade communication system unveiled by Esmaili last year. Also, Nebo tactical radar system, Costa surveillance radars, Matla al-Fajr local radar system, national radar, a model of Shahab, which is a meteor cosmic radar, a model of Saman radar, optimized Skygar radar system, high-altitude S-200 missile system, homemade Mersad missile system armed with indigenous Shaheen Eagle missiles, a mobilized Hag missile system, a homemade mid-altitude Yazahra 3 missile system, and the low-altitude Rapier missile system were among the other weapons and military equipment on display. Good grief. Is it just me? Or does all that sound maniacally insane? The Iranian armed forces also displayed a Safat electro-optic tracking system, mobile 35 and 23 millimeter cannons, a mobile tactical communications vehicle, a vehicle equipped with chemical decontamination systems, a DZ vehicle and a communication system, a K-bar tactical vehicle, a Sameh van built by the Air Defense Base, and a central communication shelter manufactured by Khatam al-Anbiya Air Defense Base in the September 22 parades. That, my friends, is certainly a mouthful. Various units of the Islamic Republic Army, Islamic Revolution Guard Corps, IRGC, Basij Volunteer Forces, and the Islamic Republic of Iran's law enforcement police were present in the military parades in downtown Tehran to commemorate the start of the Week of Sacred Defense. The Iranian armed forces have recently test-fired different types of newly developed missiles and torpedoes, and have also tested a large number of homemade weapons as well as tools and equipment, including submarines, military ships, artillery, choppers, aircrafts, UAVs, and air defense and electronic systems during massive military drills. But Iran is only interested in nuclear energy, right? Not nuclear weaponry. I'm telling you, I mean, if that is not being prepared for warfare in the highest degree, what is? Turning to Israel and anti-Semitism. In the space of just 1 week last month, according to CRIF, the umbrella group for France's Jewish organizations, 8 synagogues were attacked. One, in a Paris suburb, was firebombed by a 400-strong mob. A kosher supermarket and pharmacy were smashed and looted. The crowd's chants and banners included "Death to Jews" and "Slit Jews' throats." In Germany last month, Molotov cocktails were lobbed into the Bergisch synagogue in Wuppertal, previously destroyed on Kristallnacht. And a Berlin imam, Abu Bilal Ismail, called on Allah to, quote, destroy the Zionist Jews, count them and kill them to the very last one, close quote. Bottles were thrown through the window of an anti-Semitism campaigner in Frankfurt. An elderly Jewish man was beaten up at a pro-Israel rally in Hamburg. And an Orthodox Jewish teenager was punched in the face in Berlin. In several cities, chants at pro-Palestinian protests compared Israel's actions to the Holocaust, heralding slogans like, quote, "Jew, coward pig, come out and fight alone," close quote, and "Hamas, Hamas, Jews to the gas," quote, close quote. Across Europe, the conflict in Gaza is breathing new life into some very old and very ugly demons. During the 3 weeks of Israel's operation in late 2008 and early 2009, France recorded 66 anti-Semitic incidents, including attacks on Jewish-owned restaurants and synagogues, and a sharp increase in anti-Jewish graffiti. But this time, it is more than just a reaction to the conflict. The threats, hate speech, and violent attacks feel like the expression of a much deeper and more widespread anti-Semitism fueled by a wide range of factors that has been growing now for more than a decade. Now we are hearing things like, quote, "The Jews should be gassed," close quote, and, quote, "the Jews should be burned," close quote. And we've not heard phrases like that for decades. Anyone saying such things isn't criticizing Israeli politics. They're expressing pure hatred against Jews. The Netherlands' main anti-Semitism watchdog, CIDI, had more than 70 calls from alarmed Jewish citizens in 1 week last month. The average is normally 3 to 5. In Italy, the Jewish owners of dozens of shops and other businesses in Rome arrived to find swastikas and anti-Jewish slogans pasted on shutters and windows. Anti-Semitism is growing every day, my friends. Turning to Gaza, Hamas honored a ceasefire for the first time this week, or did they? Nonetheless, Gaza is at war once again after rockets blasted into Israel as a tense 72-hour ceasefire expired. Palestinian families fled their bombed-out homes Friday morning, August 6th, as Hamas fired at least 18 rockets from Gaza. Israel held off on returning fire for some 3 hours and then announced it was renewing its military campaign, hitting terrorist sites across the region with a fresh wave of airstrikes, gunboats, and tank fire. And there's talk about Israel returning to a ground operation once again. Turning to Islam and Iraq. Groups of fighters have been abandoning al-Qaeda affiliates in Yemen and in Africa to join the IS, not only increasing the size and threat of the Islamic State, but also increasing the threat to America now that the U.S. has physically entered the war in Iraq. Tens of thousands of Iraqi Christians fled an advance by the Islamic State into the country's Christian heartland in the north, which appears to be a strategic push by the Islamic State toward the semi-autonomous Kurdish region, so far insulated from the militant takeover of parts of Iraq and a haven for people displaced from other parts of the country. The latest rapid advance by the IS is on the Christian area and the crisis involving the Yazidis. The Yazidis are a Kurdish-speaking people that follow a pre-Islamic religion long thought by the outside world as devil-worshipping. The advance by the IS is taking place in the same northern province of Nineveh, where the IS took the provincial capital Mosul on June 10th and sent Iraq into its worst crisis in years. This is not an equal fight between the Peshmerga and the Islamic State. The IS has much larger and much more powerful weapons than the Peshmerga do. The Peshmerga want to live and go home to have dinner with their wives, whereas the IS fighters want to die and have lunch with the Prophet Muhammad. The 190,000 strong Peshmerga have a fearsome reputation and are well trained, but they are not well equipped, and many of the more battle-hardened fighters are now aging. On Sunday, August 3rd, the IS seized Sinjar, a Kurdish-controlled town with a large population of the Yazidis. As many as 40,000 Yazidis have fled to the mountains without food or water and are trapped there, with all access roads controlled by the Islamic State. They have no access to shelter either. This is a terrifying humanitarian situation. Numerous towns taken over by the IS this past week are now devoid of their original inhabitants. The displaced people are roaming the roads and riding whatever vehicle they can to get out of the area. There's not a single Christian town left standing. And the IS is now threatening to strike America. Abu Mosa, spokesman for the IS, said, quote, "I say to America that the Islamic Caliphate has been established. Don't be cowards and attack us with drones. Instead, send your soldiers, the ones we humiliated in Iraq. We will humiliate them everywhere, Allah willing, and we will raise the flag of Allah in the White House." Close quote. The IS has now established the Syrian city of Raqqa as its capital. This is the world's first declared state. In Aramaic, by the way, Raqqa means something along the lines of empty-headed idiot. Now, pay attention and get a firm hold on the following. As early as 2007, the United States has been arming, funding, and supporting the Muslim Brotherhood and a myriad of armed terrorist organizations in the interest of overthrowing the government of Syria, fighting Hezbollah in Lebanon, and undermining the power and influence of Iran. We can clearly see by any map of Islamic State-held territory that it butts up directly against Turkey's borders with defined corridors the IS uses to invade southward. This is because it is precisely from NATO territory that this terrorist scourge originated. As the U.S. feigns concern for religious minorities being slaughtered in front of the eyes of the world, it should be remembered that this conflict was engineered, set in motion, and perpetuated intentionally by the West for at least the last 7 years. The West knew that the sectarian genocide now unfolding in Syria, Iraq, and soon in Lebanon was the inevitable result of their efforts to raise this regional mercenary force. Western concern for religious minorities and the minimal provisions being made to assist them is only in the interest of maintaining an increasingly plausible deniability. The feigned dithering of the West in the face of their growing mercenary force is to allow it to overrun the Iraqi government, if possible, create more havoc within Syria, and spread the chaos to Lebanon. While the West claims it has been handing over hundreds of millions of dollars to moderates in Syria, it has offered no plausible explanation as to who is providing the Islamic State and other al-Qaeda affiliates with even more resources. The truth is that there were never any moderates to begin with, and that the United States, the UK, France, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and even Israel have, from the beginning, intentionally created a mercenary army composed of al-Qaeda extremists of unprecedented dimensions and capabilities. The direct war with Iran, which the West has been trying to sell to the world, is now clearly being replaced with an immense proxy war. It will feign ignorance about the genesis of the Islamic State and the fact that no other explanation beyond state sponsorship exists to explain its continued success on the battlefield. And token airdrops and even air strikes against IS positions will admittedly do nothing to disrupt the Islamic State's ongoing campaigns across the region. Now, all that being understood, I continue with this subject as I turn to the news in America. On Thursday, August 7th, President Barack Hussein Obama authorized targeted airstrikes and emergency assistance missions in northern Iraq, saying that the U.S. must protect American personnel and prevent a humanitarian catastrophe in the face of advances by the Islamic State. Then, on Friday, August 8th, the U.S. dropped laser-guided bombs on Islamic State artillery in Iraq. The bombs, 500 pounds each, were dropped by 2 Navy F-18 fighter jets near Erbil. And then, Obama went on vacation to Martha's Vineyard. You'll notice I started off by saying, quote, Obama authorized airstrikes, close quote. Not the United States government has done so, or not with the approval of Congress the president has done so. No. News headlines are always telling us that Obama is doing this, that, and the other thing on his own, as if he holds all the power. And this most recent flaunt of his scepter shows an outright disregard for the Constitution, which clearly states that Congress must approve any act of war. This would absolutely astound our founding fathers. How can the president authorize such a thing? Well, actually, he can't, or at least he isn't supposed to. No one seems to have a say in what goes on except Obama himself, and that is not how this country was set up, my friends. That is not the kind of behavior that should be tolerated by Congress or by government officials. But that has become the way of things. Turning to Obamacare, Jillian K. Melchior wrote a piece for the National Review Online last Friday titled, "Congress Isn't Alone in Struggling to Obtain Obamacare Records," noting how difficult it had been to obtain records in general about Obamacare. In Nevada, National Review had to sue the state health exchange before it was able to obtain records about how many Obamacare navigators had criminal backgrounds, and as it turned out, at least 8 did have criminal records. They further discovered that at least 43 convicted criminals were working as Obamacare navigators in California, including individuals who had committed serious financial crimes. The National Review also found that a Romanian hacker was able to gain access to a Vermont Health Exchange development server for an entire month before detection. Also, that a federal audit found high and critical issues in the New Mexico Health Exchange, and that covered California had potentially jeopardized the personal information of at least 378 Obamacare enrollees. It never ceases to amaze me, my friends, how the things Obama does as President of the United States of America are so incredibly wicked. Turning to the internet. You may have noticed lately that all over Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms, people have been changing their profile picture to this Arabic letter seen to my right. It is simply the Arabic letter N, and is being used as a symbol to represent those who believe in the Nazarene, Yahshua. The Islamic State militants in their rampages throughout Iraq are doing what they do to force Sharia law on everyone. Every house belonging to a believer in Yeshua is being marked with this sign to show that it is the home of an infidel. Once a home is marked, the occupants are given 24 hours to make one choice out of 3. They can move out of the area, they can be taxed on a regular basis, or they can be put to death. You're seeing this symbol being used on the web by those who want to be supportive of those persecuted believers, and also in the interest of bringing worldwide attention to this act of blasphemy. And now that you know, spread the news, my friends. And that's the news for this week. I hope, as always, that it's been helpful to you and yours. Thank you for your support. Until next week, shalom, my friends. Crowded rooms, I need more space than I consume. Enough is time alone with you, underneath a naked moon, sharing confidential moods and making chatter. Mockingbird nocturnal sings notations of eternal things, entering the quantum breeze, flying not for want of wings. He lights his gaze on you and me, simply because we